There is a moment in life, quiet, almost invisible, where once a certain truth settles into your mind, you realize there is no way back to who you were before. It doesn't arrive with drama. No shock. No applause. No clear starting line. It begins softly. A sentence you hear at the wrong, or maybe the right, time. A thought that refuses to leave once it enters. A realization that doesn't fade when you distract yourself. At first, you try to ignore it. You tell yourself it's nothing. Just another idea. But it lingers. And slowly, something inside you starts to crack. Not the world around you. Not your routine. Not your responsibilities. Something internal. You wake up one day and the world feels different, not changed, just thinner. Less solid. Less convincing. People speak the same way. Laugh at the same jokes. Chase the same milestones. But you feel like you're watching it from a slight distance, as if a thin glass wall has appeared between you and everything else. You start noticing details that once slipped past you effortlessly. The forced enthusiasm. The rehearsed opinions. The emotional reactions that seem less chosen and more triggered. You see how often people react instead of respond. How quickly they defend ideas they've never questioned. How uncomfortable silence makes them. And slowly, a disturbing truth begins to form. Most people are not living consciously. They are living on scripts. Scripts written long before they were aware enough to choose them. Scripts shaped by childhood conditioning. By fear of rejection. By the need for approval. By the terror of standing alone. Carl Jung once said that the greatest burden a human being can carry is an unlived life. And once you truly understand that, you begin to see unlived lives everywhere. People spending decades in careers they secretly resent, yet defending them passionately. People staying in relationships that drain their spirit, calling it normal. People terrified of being alone, yet miserable together. They are not unintelligent. They are not evil. They are asleep. And awareness, real awareness, is dangerous. Because it removes excuses. In the beginning, awakening feels empowering. You feel sharper. More observant. More alive than before. You think you've finally cracked the code. But then comes the part no one romanticizes. Awareness creates distance. Not intentionally. Not arrogantly. Naturally. You start to feel out of sync. Conversations feel repetitive. Advice sounds recycled. Arguments feel empty before they even begin. You notice how often people speak not to understand, but to protect their identity. How logic collapses the moment ego feels threatened. How truth becomes negotiable when it challenges self-image. And once you see that mechanism at work, you can't unsee it. Schopenhauer believed that much of human conflict exists because people confuse being right with being worthy. And once that sinks in, something shifts. You stop trying to win arguments. You stop explaining yourself to people who aren't listening. You stop investing energy in reactions that lead nowhere. Not because you feel superior, but because you're exhausted. Exhausted by illusion. This is where something uncomfortable appears. Loneliness. Not the loneliness of physical isolation, but the loneliness of awareness in a world that prefers sleep. You can sit among people, laugh with them, talk with them, and still feel unseen. Because what they recognize is the version of you that no longer exists. And here is the part almost no one warns you about. Growth will cost you. You will outgrow identities you once defended fiercely. Beliefs you once clung to for safety. People you once needed to feel whole. And you will grieve them quietly. Because there is no ceremony for psychological death. No public ritual for shedding an old self. Jung called this process individuation. It's the moment you stop living as a reflection of expectations, and start living from your own center. But individuation isn't glamorous. It doesn't make you popular. It doesn't make you admired. It doesn't make life easier. It makes you honest. And honesty disrupts illusions. You begin to see how much of society is built on performance. Success without meaning. Happiness without depth. Confidence without self-knowledge. You realize how rare it is for someone to sit quietly with their own thoughts, without reaching for distraction. Silence terrifies most people. Because silence forces confrontation. And confrontation exposes truth. Once you see this truth, your emotional landscape changes. You don't get offended as easily. You don't get impressed as quickly. You don't chase validation the way you once did. Not because you don't care, but because you finally understand where validation comes from. From people who are also searching, also uncertain, also trying to feel whole. And most people don't want truth. They want reassurance. They want confirmation. They want to be told they're fine exactly as they are, even if they're deeply unhappy. So when you stop participating in that collective agreement, something subtle happens. People feel uneasy around you. Not because you judge them, but because your presence reflects something unresolved within them. Without saying a word, you remind them of questions they've been avoiding. And that makes clarity feel isolating. You are no longer pretending confusion is normal. No longer numbing yourself to fit in. No longer participating in collective denial. Some people pull away. Some misunderstand you. Some label you cold, distant, arrogant. But the truth is simpler. You're just no longer available for illusions. You begin choosing depth over noise. Meaning over momentum. Truth over comfort. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, a calm replaces the inner chaos. You learn to observe emotions instead of drowning in them. You see anger as pain demanding control. Envy as unacknowledged desire. Cruelty as desperation wearing armor. You stop taking behavior personally. Because you understand the machinery behind it. And that understanding becomes freedom. Not loud freedom. Not dramatic freedom. Quiet freedom. The kind where you don't need to prove anything. Where you don't rush to react. Where your inner compass matters more than external approval. This is what mastery actually looks like. Not domination. Not control over others. Control over yourself. Most people never reach this stage. They spend their lives running from discomfort. Drowning questions in distraction. Calling awareness overthinking. But you stayed. You didn't turn away when things got uncomfortable. You didn't numb yourself back into ignorance. You kept looking. And now, there is no return. You can't unsee patterns. You can't unlearn what you understand. You can't go back to unconscious living. And that isn't a loss. It's initiation. You've crossed a psychological threshold. You are no longer becoming who the world expects. You are becoming who you are. And that path is quieter. Lonelier. Slower. But it is real. If this resonated with you, it's because you're already on that path. And if you want more content exploring psychology, philosophy, and inner mastery, subscribe. Because once you see the truth, you can't go back.